Okay, in this session, you are going to know about the storage virtualization. If you haven't tried, that means we will discuss about the hardware virtualization and operating system virtualization. Here, what is a storage virtualization concept here? The storage virtualization is one of the virtualization in a cloud computing. Here, the storage virtualization. Thus, it is a process of grouping the physical storage from a multiple network storage devices. Here, process that means it is a particular process here, process of grouping the physical storage from the multiple network devices, so that it looks like a single storage device. The storage virtualization also implemented by using software applications. Here, by using software, simple software application, you will implement the storage. The software that means that is a storage virtualization. The storage virtualization done for the necessities here, backup and recovery purposes. Here for the backup and recovery purposes, you are using the storage virtualization. The storage virtualization used at a location with many storage systems. That means from the different storage system, you are performing the storage virtualization. The storage virtualization used to create a abstract layer between a logical storage and physical storage system. Here, between a logical storage system and a physical storage system, an abstract layer is there. That means that is called here hypervisor. The task of yes, storage virtualization used to create that means it creates a abstract layer between a logical storage as well as the physical storage. Here, in this case, multiple storage devices in a network will be pulled into a single storage device. Here, that means you are getting the data from the multiple storage device. Those devices combined at one place here. That the combined one place that in a single storage device. The storage pool or combined place. The storage pool can be managed from the central console. That is a storage device. The storage virtualization techniques can be divided into two types. One is a block virtualization, other one is a file virtualization. The right side diagram shows the block virtualization concept as well as the file virtualization concept. Here, what is the block virtualization? The block virtualization focus on a creating virtual disks so that distributed storage networks appears as a one storage system. Here, that's called here physical storage system here. And then file virtualization, creating the virtual file system of the storage device into network. It involves the some multiple storage device into a single logical pool of files. That means it's a done. That means combining one place here multiple storage devices in a single file. That is called here the main agenda of this storage virtualization. It keep track the which file reside on a which storage devices, maintain a global mapping of a file location. That is a the storage virtualization. Here, if you comes to the diagram, the storage virtualization here, there is a different storage devices are there. On top of the storage devices, you have a server. That means server maintains these storage devices, and then on top of you are creating the virtual layer. And that means on top of here, you are creating the operating system. Here, that is a storage virtualization. Here, the storage virtualization used in storage area networks and in the form of block virtualization. You have an idea about the two different virtualization. Block block virtualization. Here, it's a focus on creating a virtual disk. The block, what is the aim of block virtualization? Creating the virtual disk so that the distributed storage network appears as a one storage system. And then file virtualization in the sense creating the virtual files of a storage device into network. Virtual files. You are going to creating the virtual files. And then the storage virtualization used in a storage area network. SAN, that is called here SAN in the form of block virtualization. The characteristics of SAN network can be very complex in a particular. when there are many different types of storage systems and network. If you have the n number of storage systems and the networks, here the characteristics of SAN network can be vary, very complex. Here, if you have the small number of storage systems, if you have the small number of storage systems here, the characteristics of SAN SAN network, SAN network storage area network may be simple. Here, sometimes it may be a simple, sometimes it may be a complex. When it is complex here, if you having the multiple storage systems, many different types of storage system, many different types of network, then it is a complex one. If it is a simple, less number of storage system, the storage virtualization hides the physical complexity from the application and storage administrator, making it possible to manage it as a single resource. That is a simple information. And then management of storage device can be time consuming also. When it is time consuming here, when a number of storage, huge number of storages in a network. Here, if you have in the huge number of storage in a network here, for example, you have a network, either LAN network, that means internet. You are from the internet here, you are doing all remote operations. If you in the internet here, the number of storage, the storage device, more number of storage devices are there. Then the management of storage device can be time consuming. If the management of storage device can be taking the less time, when it less time here, the very less number of storage devices in a network. The storage virtualization help the storage administrator perform the task of backup, archiving, and then recovery. Here, performing these tasks here, the storage virtualization helps the storage administrator. And then the administrator can use a central console, which is placed inside the one of the server, and and can be accessed remotely to generate a overview of how much and what kind of data, how much data stored onto the storage system, what kind of data stored onto the storage system, that kind of information accessed and then placed inside the one of the server. That is called here administrator. That means for doing these tasks here, administrator uses a central console. Here I am telling you once again here, the administrator use the central console. What is the need of using central console here, which is placed inside the one of the server and then can be accessed remotely to generate an overview of how much data stored into the storage system and then what kind of data is stored into the storage system. That is a storage system. That is a simple information. That's very important thing. The storage virtualization technologies. Here, that means how can you represent the storage virtualization technology? This is a storage virtualization technology. And then coming to the second important one here is a hardware virtualization. Here, what is a hardware virtualization here? Here, when the virtual machine software or virtual machine manager or hypervisor is directly installed on a hardware system known as a hardware virtualization. Here, that means you are directly installed on a just like a server. Server maintains some of the hardware as well as some of the other things here. Here, the server maintains some other thing. Here, what is the thing here? The virtual mission manager or hypervisor is directly installed on the hardware is known as a hardware virtualization. The main job of hypervisor is to control and monitor the processor, memory, and other hardware resources. Here, what are the main job in this case here? Controlling, monitoring the processor, controlling and monitoring the memory, and then controlling and monitoring the hardware resources. That is a main job here. And then after virtualization, you can install different operating system on it and run the different application on operating system. Here one operating system, you are installing the different operating system. Here, for example, I am having a Windows 10. Here from the Windows 10, you are going to installing the different operating system. Here, that is a virtualization concept. The hardware virtualization is mainly done for the server platform because controlling virtual machine is a much easier than the controlling the physical server. Here, controlling the virtual machine, that is a simple information. Here, in this case, there is a, that means everywhere you will identify the hypervisor. The hypervisor manages the shared physical resources of a hardware between a guest operating system as a host operating system. Here, which type of operating system is called as a guest operating system? That means virtual operating system. The virtual operating system we call it as a guest operating system. And then host operating system in the sense here hardware and hypervisor components both together, that not a hardware, that means host operating system in the sense, for example, I am in my system I am having the Windows 10, that is a host operating system. Here between a guest operating system and host operating system, you can share the physical resources of hardware. The physical resources become abstract version of in a standard formats regardless of the hardware format. And then the abstracted hardware is represented as a actual hardware. Here in this particular case, abstracted hardware represented as a actual hardware. Then virtualized operating system looks into the resources as their physical entities. That is a virtualization. Here it's having a some advantages are there. It is a more efficient resource utilization. That means the physical resources can be shared among the virtual machine. All that means in this case here, resources can be allocated to virtual machine and that can be used by other virtual machine if the need exists. And then lower overall cost. Here, this is possible. The multiple operating system coexist on a single hardware platform, so that the number of servers and that means rack of space and power consumption here power consumption drops significantly. That is a one of the another important advantages here. Lower overall cost. For the that means overall cost in the sense here single hardware platform, so that number of servers, space, power consumption drop significantly, and then increase uptime. Here, increase uptime here. The modern hypervisor provide a operation that maximize the abstraction of hardware and help to ensure the maximum uptime. That is another advantage. And then increase IT flexibility. That means flexibility in the sense quick development of server resource in a managed and consistent way. That means that result in a IT being able to adapt quickly and provide the business with the resources need in a good time. That is a another advantages. Here the previous advantages, so many advantages are there. More efficient resource utilization, lower overall cost, and then increased uptime, increased IT flexibility, and then efficient backup and recovery. One or the other. That means because of storage virtualization, the data can be destroyed in seconds. That means that is efficient backup. And why? Because the virtual data stored as a file or group of file. That's why the virtualization make a recovery much easier and accurate with less manpower while using the very fewer resources. The efficient its operation, and then it can provide a easier way for IT staff to install and maintain the software rather than maintaining the hardware here. Here efficient it operation here. The staff to install and maintain the software rather than the maintaining the hardware. This is a one of the another advantages here. Here coming to the operating system virtualization. Here, what is a operating system virtualization? The operating system virtualization means the already discussed the concept by using VMware software or like that. Here, when a virtual machine software or virtual machine manager is installed on the host operating system instead of directly on the hardware system is known as a operating system virtualization. Is it you remember that concept here? Hardware virtualization or server virtualization, the operating system or some software installed on the hardware or server, but here you are installing the installed on a host operating system. Host operating system in the sense, for example, in my system, Windows 7 is a host operating system. On top of the Windows 10, Windows 7, I'm going to installing the Linux operating system. That's a guest operating system. Here, that means install on the host operating system instead of directly on the hardware system is known as a operating system virtualization. Remember that one. Here, not directly install the software, install the virtual machine software or VMM install on the host operating system instead of directly on the hardware system is known as a operating system virtualization. Here, the operating system virtualization used for testing the application on different platform of a operating system. For testing different application, you are using this one. And then with the help of OS virtualization, here nothing is free installed. Here you are not installing the free installing or permanently loaded on a local device and no hardware disk is needed. That is the thing here. What is the thing here? With the help of OS virtualization, nothing is free installed. That means the permanently loaded onto the nothing is permanently loaded onto the local device. It's a loaded into the somewhere else. No hard disk is needed. Everything run from the network using kind of virtual disk. Here, what is a virtual disk here? That means this virtual disk is a disk file, a disk image file. Disk image, that means you are taking the image file. From the image file, for example, if you comes to the VMware, how can you install the VMware? By directly click on next you install. Other thing here is a by directly from the Windows 7 image file. From this file you are directly install the another operating system. The virtual disk is a disk image file stored onto the remote server or um, a storage area network or non-volatile attached storage. Here in this case, the client will be connected by the network to the virtual disk. What is the client here? The client is a one type of software here. That means there is a sends a always request to the server here and will boot with the operating system installed on a virtual disk. This is a somewhat information. And then you have in the operating system virtualization, you have a different components are there. OS virtualization server, OS virtualization client, and then database, finally virtual disk. These four are different kinds of components. We are coming to the server here. The server in the sense first component is a OS virtualization server. What is the need of server here? The server is a central point in a operating system virtualization infrastructure. Here naturally server is a software here. What about the this information? Server takes a request from the client, process that request, and send a reply to the client. The server manages the streaming of information, the continuous flow up and flow down information. That's what is the streaming of information? The continuous information, flow up and flow down information on a virtual disk for the client, and it determines which client will be connected to the which virtual disk using database. This information stored, that is a simple information. What is the simple information? Server manages the streaming of data streaming of information on a virtual disk for the client. Server always manages. For example, if it comes to the Google server, if I am the client, I am sending some information. The what about the Google server? Google server always maintains a certain kind of information, and the different storage centers are there. That they're maintaining the different kinds of information like that. Here also maintains the virtual uh, streaming information on the virtual disk for the client, and it determines the which client will be connected to the which virtual disk using database. This information stored. and then the server can host the storage for the virtual disk locally, or server is connected to the virtual disk via storage area network. That is a simple task. And then in high availability environment, there can be a more more operating system virtualization servers are there. Here, what are the necessity of more operating system virtualization server here? To create a no redundancy and load balancing. No redundancy, that means redundant data, duplication of data. What is the need of more number of operating system virtualization server? To create the no redundancy. And then load balancing in the sense distribution of task, distribution of task to the different things. That is called that. For doing that thing, you are using the this more number of virtualization server. That means, and then the server ensure that the client will be unique within a infrastructure. The unique in the sense, that means it's having the username password, the uniqueness. And then second one is a client here. Here, what is this client here? There is a client which will contact the server to get connected to the via virtual disk and ask for the component stored on a virtual disk for running the operating system. Here, the client always sending the request, always sending the request to the server. Here, contact the server to get connected via virtual disk and ask for the component stored on the virtual disk for running the operating system. That is a main role of client here. Is, I think, clear the concept, server concept as well as the client concept. Another important one here is a database. Here, what is the database in this case? Here, database always store in the configuration and setting for the server. And then it's also stores the streaming service for virtual disk content. And not only this service, here you have a TFTP service, PXC boot service for connecting the client to the OS virtualization server. That is a main role here. Their main role of database here is a storing the configuration and setting for the servers. And then it's having the another important component here, the virtual disk. The virtual disk contains a image of a physical disk. What is a necessary? That means here the virtual disk also doing virtualization image of the physical disk. Instead of physical disk, you are using the virtual disk from a system that reflect the configuration and the setting of the those system, which will be used using the virtual disk. When a virtual disk is created, then the disk need to be assigned to the client that will be using the disk for the starting. That is a the virtual disk. The virtual disk in the sense in place of, that means the virtual disk always consists of image of the original disk. And then the connection between a client and a disk is made via administrative tools and saved within a database. When client has a assigned disk, the mission can be started with the virtual disk. That is a main role in a virtual disk. Here you have four different components are there. The server one component, client another component here a database, virtual disk fourth component in this case. That is a the process of OS virtualization. Here, how can you do the process of OS virtualization? Connecting to the OS virtualization server, one thing. The second thing here is a connecting the virtual disk, another thing. And then third one is a virtual disk connected to the client. Virtual is connected to the client, and then OS is streamed to the client system. These are all four steps in a process of OS virtualization. Here is the first one. Here is a first thing, connecting to the OS virtualization server. How can you connecting the OS virtualization server here? The first, after second step here is a connecting the virtualization disk, and then third step, virtualization disk to client. Final step is a OS is a stream to the client. This is a some information regarding the OS virtualization process. Thank you.